Hello, I'm Phoebe Bulwell, editor of the Exporting Matters Hub, produced by Raconteur and Royal Mail. Now, trade is a tricky topic. For any company that sells products overseas, supply chain challenges and geopolitical shifts will always be a factor. But the current dynamics, while complex, seem to lend themselves to exporting, with SMEs and multinationals leaning into diversification to increase resilience and ease the pressure on a single market. As businesses start thinking ahead to 2024, the big question now is, what's next? I'm delighted to be joined by Anthony Harvey, Managing Director of Royal Mail's International Business. We'll be discussing what businesses could and should expect from the future landscape of international commerce. Anthony, hi. Thank you so much for joining me. Lovely to have you here.
Hi, good to be here.
Wonderful. It's been a particularly turbulent few years for global business. What factors have played into that, and how are you seeing them influence the outlook for international trade?
As you say, huge change in the last few years. We had a pandemic that really changed the way that people think and work and feel, but gave a massive boost and acceleration to e-commerce, so got people used to ordering that may not have done so before the pandemic. But at the same time, it created massive disruption to our ability to move things between countries with closed borders, transport bans, and actually for a while people were nervous about whether the virus could be carried on goods themselves. So huge disruption that we had to burst through. But besides that, and we're now thankfully over that, there's been just a real shift in the requirements from countries around the world over protecting their borders. Some might go towards protectionism, but really it's about understanding for security and fiscal reasons what's coming in and what's going out of your country. And with that, there's a massive data requirement. So you might expect the first answer from me to be Brexit, but actually the consequence of Brexit is that we have to trade with the European Union as we trade with the USA. The European Union wants data, the USA wants data. So whether we're in or out, one way or another, the ask is the same. So for us, as a Royal Mail, and for our customers, it's largely been a data gathering exercise and building data pipelines between countries to say what's coming, who's buying what, and where is it going to, and what's coming back out of the country into the UK's borders. So huge technical disruption because we've had to build those pipelines and we've had to train customers to get used to moving data as well as goods. But with that, actually, the borders remain open. So while there have been massive disruptions, while the Ukraine war has made us reroute items, actually we've found that provided we get the data right, and now we've built those pipes, things keep moving and we are fairly resilient to global shocks.
I think that leads us quite nicely on to my next question, which is, how are you seeing businesses adapting to and reacting to those trade-related challenges?
Lots of companies have coped really well because what they're doing is they're just setting up their inventory and their goods and websites to capture the basic levels of data required for international trade. The more advanced ones are with us investing in duties paid and clearance offerings, so to remove friction with the customer. And we in the industry are investing in connecting better to other posts and other couriers to improve the features and data back to the sender and the recipient. Where's my item? Can I change where it's going? Can I have it brought back, or can I have it brought to my neighbour? So all of the benefits and features you would expect with a local to local delivery, we're now using this advanced data set to start rolling that out for international deliveries. And the companies that have set themselves up right are doing very well out of taking advantage of that.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. So for businesses that are domestically focused, why would right now be a good time to start exporting?
Well, it's no secret that there's been plenty of financial turmoil in the UK in particular. There's cost of living constraints, and those constraints are squeezing people's budgets and mean that they get to order less frequently. Now, retail seems to be holding up fairly well. E-commerce is holding up fairly well. But if you get your product into multiple markets, you have a natural hedge against problems in any other market. So the more broadly your product is consumed, the more insulated you are against individual country shocks. And it is not unheard of, but rare that the whole world has a shock at once. COVID might be the exception to that rule, but normally there's somewhere growing as well as there's somewhere shrinking. So the wider you spread your product, the more resilient you'll be if there are problems at home.
And I suppose you'll see those trends in different markets. the more you interact with them. Yeah. Which markets would you say at the moment are experiencing stronger demand growth and more interest from businesses looking to expand?
Royal Mail is actually seeing very significant growth in volumes to the US. There's always been a large trading relationship, huge expat community and solid growth out there. So we're seeing lots of volume to the US. And then emerging markets and markets where there's lots of bilateral trade, China makes a huge amount of product that is brought into the UK and lots of samples go back, and there is demand because of those business relationships for UK product as well, because of the movements of people. The Middle East has got a large and growing expat community who want the brands that they're used to back home, and have a particular demand for luxury goods as well in certain parts of the Middle East. And India, we see that as the next economic powerhouse, the next manufacturing powerhouse, and we are seeing a growing interest from Indian exporters into the UK, and as a result UK exporters out to the Indian market. And obviously there are long, historic, deep running relationships with that market as well.
So to indulge in a bit of future gazing, what are some of the key exporting trends that will shape international trade in the next few years?
So yeah, I've probably said the word data too many times, if anything, but data will be an ongoing and growing requirement. Governments around the world and customs agencies are realising fast that their borders can be porous and they don't necessarily know what's coming in. So we can expect more and more governments to ask for digital data, what's coming, perhaps before it's even left the UK. They want to clear it before it's arrived. And they want to know that everything's safe and that there aren't any illicit goods. And they are going to want to know that goods are going to the right people and not those who are prohibited. So data requirements will be a growing feature, and that will make it harder if you want to put stamps on items with handwritten addresses. But actually, if Royal Mail and other couriers are investing very heavily in getting data right and getting the data flows right with posts and couriers around the world, and if we get that right and we get the duties right up front, there's no need for it to disrupt anything. In fact, it will make things faster. So continued scrutiny at the border, I'd say, is one theme. Recovery is the next theme. The pandemic knocked all the planes out the sky. We've had huge disruption, and for a while things were taking a long time to get around because there were just not enough planes to move all of the goods. Royal Mail mostly uses passenger planes to make sure that things are as environmentally friendly as possible. We put them in the hold of an aircraft that's already moving. But because we do that, we know that the industry is recovering quite quickly. There are some of the high volume routes that have more planes going than they did before the pandemic, and the rest of the world is catching up. So the positive trend is we will see costs, at least for that middle mile, that transportation route, coming down, and the speed going up as the industry recovers, which is a very positive piece. And I think the third major trend won't come as a surprise to anybody, but with items moving potentially thousands of miles, there's a growing focus on the environment and the environmental impact of exporting. And so and I can vouch for it, over 200 posts are regularly coming together to look for efficiencies and sharing how we can electrify our fleet, consolidate movements. We're working together to make sure that perhaps more than one post use the same vehicle, to try and really reduce the carbon footprint, as well as investing in new technologies and working with the air industry to invest in new technologies to really reduce the impact on the environment of that overseas trade.
Brilliant. It seems like we've got a lot to look forward to, and businesses should really be excited for the future of international trade. Thank you, Anthony. I think that seems like a really great note to end on. For more on this subject, visit the Exporting Matters Hub on raconteur.net.